It's time. I've been putting this off for about a month now because I just absolutely do not want to work on this car. This is my 2002 Lexus IS300 Sportcross. It is fairly broken, and hopefully over the course of the next month I'm going to fix it up to the point of being a good, solid daily driver again. Here's what's wrong. First of all, we have some cosmetics. This car went off the highway through a barbed wire fence during an ice storm 2 winters ago. We've got some bumper damage, and then we have paint damage to pretty much every panel on the car. So yeah, the worst of the damage though is this fender is caved in, this hood is scratched down to bare metal, and of course the bumper cover. The fun part about that is that the Sportcross has a unique bumper cover and they're absolutely impossible to find. So might use a sedan bumper cover or try and fix this one, maybe plastic weld and heat gun. And first I've just got to get it off, which I know from experience is super fun on these cars. The next issue is the suspension. This one's actually kind of my fault. This car only has 110,000 miles on it, but the suspension is rattling like it has twice that. I have some thoughts. On why that may be. Turns out off-road racing is fairly hard on cars. Who'da thunk? Though, this car was very good at it. Now this is the problem that I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be able to actually fix. There's a bit of rust and crustiness going on with these rocker panels. I'm hoping that there's like body filler coming off. I'm not sure what's going on with these rockers, but it's not pleasant. So this is going to get a wire wheel. We're going to see what the actual extent of the damage is, and might just end up stopping it and then covering all of the damage with some side skirts, because I'm not a body man. Welding in patches and smoothing them out is pretty far outside my area of expertise. What's my area of expertise? Last issue is in the engine bay. The AC just doesn't hold coolant for whatever reason anymore, so I'm assuming that an O-ring has gone wrong somewhere. I did put some dye in it a while ago, and it has since leaked it all out, so gotta find that, find the leak, order an O-ring kit, and fix it. And then have it vacuumed and charged and all that, and it should be good to go. So you might be asking yourself why I seem so loath to work on these cars. After all, it's pretty much just a fancy Toyota Camry. What could be difficult? Well, as it turns out, a lot of things. People like Scotty Kilmer will be banging their root beers on the table, declaring Toyota to be the absolute best car manufacturer of all time if you value reliability and repairability. But Lexus does not seem to follow that trend. Between my IS300 here and the LS400 I had before it, I have never done a 180 so hard on a brand as I have Lexus. These things are garbage and I hate them, and here's why. This simple little straight six rear wheel drive sports sedan has so many little things that just make it incredibly annoying to work on. One of them being putting any refrigerant or AC stuff in here. You can't even see it. The low port is way down there. You straight up can't get a manifold on the AC system on this thing. It is buried. And then there's the air filter or the oil filter way down there as well. You've got to kind of reach down. I guess that's not the worst. It's about as bad as an NB Miata, which still isn't exactly a cakewalk, but it's just annoying. Also, most of the intake has to come off to do plugs because it goes over the valve cover, which, why? Why didn't they just bring it over here? I don't understand that at all. Of course, the bumper and the under plastics all have to come off to change the headlights. That's pretty typical these days, but still unwelcome and obnoxious. Also, this suspension design really bothers me. I'm not an engineer. I know very little from my time doing Formula SAE, but this control arm especially, right here, has this bushing that just has way too much on its plate. And that bushing is the main reason that we're replacing suspension parts today. I say today. We're replacing suspension parts this month, the next month, the rest of all time, the remainder of eternity. This is similar to the rear suspension, the fault in the rear suspension design of the Acura Integra that everyone hated so much that someone actually built and people buy this like $800 spherical bearing replacement. They're trying to make a rubber bushing do basically the same thing as a spherical bearing. I don't understand why this isn't just a dog bone. Why didn't they just make this like a regular multi-link? They did this weird hybrid thing. In my mind, and I'm not an engineer again, in my mind, you want a rubber bush to have one major force vector acting upon it, and only one for longevity and, you know, it actually doing its job well. So the main force vector here is going to be in roughly this sort of a direction, forward and back, as the brakes drag this entire assembly rearward and apply a compressive force in that direction on the bushing. That's fine. That is compressing the leading edge of the bushing. That is what rubber bushings are very, very good at, is resisting compressive forces. What they're very bad at is shear forces, shear tearing or pulling forces. The other thing that this has to do is every single time the suspension moves, the whole bushing is being twisted about its axis, which is nothing but shear and tearing forces on the rubber. And of course, when that rubber ages, it's going to go to crap very quickly, which it has done here. Another instance of a gross misuse of bushings that I can think of is in the steering racks for the Jaguar XJS, XK8, and Aston Martin DB7. They all mount to the subframe with some rubber bushings that are oriented 90 degrees off of where they should be. They are, if you've got the tube for the throttle going this way, the bushings sit adjacent to it, mounting it to the frame, and they are under nothing but a side-to-side movement along their mounting axis, which is absolutely the wrong way to do it, because then as you turn, you're putting a tearing force onto that rubber, and then what happens is the inner sleeve detaches from the rubber, or the outer sleeve detaches from the rubber, or the rubber just tears down the middle, and now your entire steering rack is free to move side to side within, you know, the restrictions of its mounting brackets, but still you have a whole lot of free play, which leads to incredibly sloppy handling, and actually that led to the demise of a whole bunch of Jaguar XJSs as the owners would lose control on the highway from those bushings tearing. I had an XJS. I could not keep bushings in the stupid thing to save my life. I ended up actually rebuilding the bracket to hard mount the steering rack to the frame, which did absolute wonders for the way that it drove. So this seems like a really basic thing. I'm not sure why I keep coming across this in different cars, like rubber, how does it work? But just why? I'm going to try and show this bushing damage before taking it out so you can kind of see what it looks like in the car there. You can see how that's torn and separated and just completely coming apart. The result there is that this entire hub is able to move forward and backward inside the wheel well relative to the rest of the car. I actually, when I had the car on the ground, if I was to roll forward and then put the brakes on, you could see the whole thing shift backwards about a half inch. And then if I did reverse, it would shift forward a half inch. So that made some pretty awful noises and made the handling and driving just a bit strange. Something else I've just noticed is this control arm here has the nut to take it off completely captive by this part of the under tray, and I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure that that under tray is going to have to come off, and I'm pretty sure that in order to take that under tray off, I also have to take the front bumper off, which I was going to do anyway, and it's not even necessarily an exorbitant amount of effort to do anything on this car. I just get incredibly annoyed when I come across stuff like this. It just seems this stupid or this unnecessary, or poorly thought out in the case of some of this. I actually haven't seen enough of Scotty Kilmer's videos to know if he's even recommended Lexuses before. I know he talks about the Toyota Camry all the time from the memes. I accidentally watched like 30 seconds of one of his videos the other day, and it was the most appalling garbage that I'd ever seen in my life. I try not to talk crap on YouTubers much because everyone's trying their hardest, but he just seems like all he's after is ad revenue and views, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm not also after ad money and views, but at least I'm not sitting here misleading people on purpose. Anyway, concluding my rant that's gonna probably lose me a majority of my subscriber base, let's see if I can get this control arm at least partially unbolted. Got the strut bolt off, but look at that guy. That holds the control arm together. That is a big chungus right there. Look at that. What an absolute unit. That's actually astonishing. I love it. Let's keep going on the other one. Update. It's been several hours. The sun's going down now. It's been like 4 hours or something like that. Not much has changed. I got all the bolts out of this control arm, but it refuses to move from where it connects to the subframe. I still have no way to get to the bolt for this other control arm here. I have the upright completely taken off so that I can get to the bolts here that for the bracket thing that the shock connects to. I don't really know what to call all this stuff. For whatever reason, this castle nut for the tie rod end was torqued down to about 1,000,000 foot-pounds. I had to put a cheater on this breaker bar to get that loose. And then I had to use, where is it? I had to use my ball joint jaws to get it off and ruined it in the process. So now I need new tie rod ends. I'm sure those are gonna come off without a fight. I mean, that looks like it's completely seized into one piece. In the process of trying to get this bolt off, this nut off of this stud that I believe is actually a part of this lower sway bar end link, it's not coming off, it's just spinning the whole stud. And there's nowhere to grab it, so I'm not entirely sure what to do about that. But in the process of trying to get it off, I pulled pretty much every muscle in my left arm, which is now killing me. So, yeah, I'm actually not entirely sure I can get this done in my garage with hand tools, but now I also can't get it put back together and take it somewhere else. So that's a lot of fun. I'm having a real good time right now. So much so that I decided to take a break and do something different. Finally doing an oil change on the Ducati. It's a good time. Yeah, some interesting things about these bikes actually. The drain is a 10 mil hex. It's huge. And then you've got this thing here, which is like a pre-filter for the actual filter. And it's like a screen. And something you got to watch on these is for metal particulate in the screen, because that means that you need to do an engine teardown to tighten some internal bolt in the crankcase that likes to occasionally, on some of these engines, it'll back out and it'll get nicked by the crank as it goes by. And if it comes out completely, it actually seals up an oil galley. You lose oil pressure and bye-bye engine. Luckily, nothing there. Very, very tiny amounts of very fine metal flake on the magnetic drain pan. Looked like a perfectly normal amount. Bike seems healthy. Put some oil in it, and this new filter, which is chrome. For some reason. It's a Wix filter, and I was wondering why on earth it was chrome until I had a hunch. I was like, nobody would chrome this unless it was being marketed to Harley people. And as it turns out, yes, the oil filter for a Ducati Super Sport cross-references with a Sportster or something like that. So, yep, there you go. Chrome oil filter. And there's no way for me to get a grip on that to tighten it down enough. It's leaking like a sieve. So I got to go get like a wrench or something to actually screw that down enough to, you know, make a seal. So that's fun. I really don't seem to be able to win for anything right now. I couldn't get this hand tight enough, so I went to go buy one of these, but I needed to know what size it was, so I brought the old filter along, put it in a plastic bag, you know, in the box for the new one with the open end up. Somehow it got inverted, and now I've got oil all over my pant legs because I decided to take the reliable vehicle, the Kawasaki Ninja 300, except that it wasn't reliable, and it died on me a few times because my aftermarket replacement ignition switch has a really apparently jankety connector, and if you wiggle this, the bike shuts off. So I'm not sure what needs to happen there. I'm gonna pull this apart, I think. So this is all the male end. I wonder what's happening here. I wonder why that's not making a very solid connection. I could try bending all of these slightly inward just to kind of preload them against the connector here. It looks like this actually might have gotten some like spray paint overspray in it, so maybe just cleaning these out with a pick is the solution. Either way, that's fun. So let's see just how loose this was, just being you know, garbage finger tight. Okay, yeah, that'll leak. There we go. That's not super tight, but shouldn't leak. I also bought some brake cleaner. It's like spray painting a bike clean. That looks leak-free to me. Cool beans.